Hi, Dr. Bob Flower here. I want to relate a story to you as to a incredible discovery that has evolved in my life over the past 35 years. This chapter it regards the beginning. In 1980, my life actually changed forever. My wife and I were on vacation in Arizona, and we had an interest at that time in what was called the Energy Vortex up in Sedona. We had heard about it. It was something that we've had some interest in. And we decided we'd go up and do a little research on it and see if it was valid or not. And we did. And the first thing I did is I stopped in a local library there. And I asked the librarian, I said, could you tell us anything about the energy vortexes in Sedona? And she looked at me like, we don't talk about that here, At that time, 1980, Sedona was like 3,500 population, in a very upscale but small community, very straight-laced. So she said, no, I can't, but you know what? There is a gentleman here today. He happens to be here. He's never here on Mondays. He's usually here on Fridays. But he's sitting over there. He might be able to give you some information. And I went over and introduced myself, and he said, oh, certainly, sit down. We can discuss this. And after a little while, he said to me, he said, you should meet somebody that I think could really help you out. And he was an American who had taken on Indian culture and been living with Indians in northern Sedona. So I contacted him, and he wasn't very receptive for some reason. Seemed very fearful. But I persisted, and it took me maybe 2 days. I finally met with him, my wife and I, and we got talking, and he was mostly listening to my questions and very vague answers. And he said, by the way, where are you from? And I said, well, I'm from Gilchrist, New York. I said, I grew up in New York. He says, oh. He said, well, I got married in Yonkers, New York, by the racetrack. And something inside of me clicked. And I said, really? He said, yeah. He said, it was some justice of the peace up by the racetrack. Now, at that time, I had a real estate office on Yonkers Avenue up from the racetrack, 2 blocks up from the racetrack. And across the street from me was a justice of the peace. And as I said, something clicked inside of me. And I said, did you get married on a Sunday afternoon? And he said, yeah. I said, and the judge needed a witness, and you had no witness. So he said, let me call one of the local business guys to see if he's available to come on over. He usually works on Sundays and be a witness. So he says, yeah. He says, and then this young fellow came over who had a real estate office across the street. And this guy was turning pink and yellow and blue all at the same time. And he said, no, don't tell me. I said, yeah. He said, I don't know what to say. I said, and you offered him a $10 tip afterwards. And he said, no, you keep it for your honeymoon. He said, I don't believe this. He says, you were a witness at my wedding? And I guess this was about, this had been maybe, I don't know, 10, 15 years, or maybe 15 years earlier that this had occurred. So we had this incredible cosmic connection. here's a guy up in the northern woods of Sedona, and I come out of nowhere, and here's a relationship. So the end result was, he says to me, you should really examine Stonehenge. I said, Stonehenge? Last time I had heard Stonehenge was in my college art class. What does Stonehenge have to do about this? Little did I know. So we left, and there were a few other things that had occurred that just sort of connected this whole meaning into something more than what one would say is normal or right. And I left, and I started to research Stonehenge. And before or right after this whole event, I met another gentleman who, at the time, I was taking classes in sort of like hypnosis, but communications, subliminal communications. Trying to improve my skills, my communications and negotiating skills, and this fella starts talking to me about the importance of the ancient sites and the scriptures. And I'm saying to myself, well, wait a minute, Stonehenge is an ancient site. So from that, I started to read the various scriptures, all of them, the Bible, Kabbalah, what have you, and I discovered a connection, a mathematical and geometric connection between them and Stonehenge. And that leads me to the next part, the discovery.